Dear Gemma, my husband and I both work. He works full-time, I work part-time, 3 days a week. He seems to think that because he works more hours, the other 2 days I'm not at work, and basically his days off are his. After work he's done, he doesn't want to cook, he doesn't help with bedtimes or lunch prep. At the weekend he's not interested in family stuff because he's recovering. I do everything. Even my days off are not really days off because I'm organising everything for the family and the home. I have no time for me. I've started making excuses for him to family and friends because I'm embarrassed. I'm starting to really resent him. Just looking at him pisses me off. I don't want to feel this way. I know he works hard, but so do I. I just don't get paid for it. We hear a lot of noise around the mental load and the invisible labour that happens in a home. And I think what's really important here is we can see that that's happening, but why and what do we do about it? Because when we're starting to feel resentful, that can make us feel guilty or like we're expecting too much or ungrateful or am I going mad? Because it's validated time and time and again that that's just how it is. And we hear it amongst our friends and on social media, and it vilifies men and makes the women victims. And if you know me at all, you know that's not what I am here for. So what's actually happening is there is this invisible labour. Clearly, she is doing all the work, remembering all the things, making sure everything runs smoothly, whilst he sees his job as I go to work and then I come home. And the reality is he would go to work whether he had a family at home or not. So there should be a change. He's not losing anything by being in a relationship and committing time and energy to that relationship, because the job would exist whether he had the family at home or not. What he needs to commit to is that family piece at home. Now, quite often this is genuinely invisible. It's not that they're being difficult or trying to be unkind. If they grew up in a family where the female, the mum, the female caregiver was the person who done everything, that's just their expectation unconsciously. And so even if you're saying the words, they're not sticking, they're not really going in, and they genuinely cannot see what needs to be done. Does that make it okay? No. Does it mean there's work to be done? Yes. But I think it's important to recognize that this genuinely often isn't done in any form of malice. It's just they don't see it. But that doesn't make it okay. You are in a partnership, when you're in a relationship and you have a family together and you have a home together, whether you have kids or not, to be honest, it is a partnership. You should both be contributing. So it's about understanding what that looks like, what the expectation is, what the boundaries are. And I think with that emotional piece as well, that building of resentment, I am a true believer that most marriages come to an end through resentment. It's the build up, it's all of those unspoken conversations, death by 1,000 eye rolls, as you may well have heard me say before. And those things build to the bigger. They build to the affairs, the disconnection, but it's hard to name because it doesn't feel big enough. But it adds up and it adds up and it adds up. So it's really important that we deal with resentment as early as we can to avoid things becoming unsolvable, unfigureoutable, and when they could potentially be able to be addressed with strong communication, honest conversations, clear boundaries. So it's perfectly understandable that you can appreciate, which is what she said in the letter, you can appreciate what someone brings to the table. For example, they're the breadwinner, but that doesn't negate their role as a parent and as a partner. And so you can be grateful for one thing and still want more. You can be grateful for where you are and what you've got and still want more. That's okay. That's absolutely normal, healthy, ambitious, probably not the right word, but it's okay to say, I'm really glad for everything I've got. I really appreciate what you bring to the table financially. and I still need you to be a partner, and I still need you to be a parent, and I still need you to be active in this family. And I think particularly the area there around she is protecting his reputation, starting to make excuses for him not coming to things. That's not for her, although it will be internalized. That's to protect him. And by protecting him, we'll also be creating a sense of shame, because whenever we hide something, our unconscious mind tells us it's something to be ashamed of, and that's why we're hiding it, because that fear of other people's judgment. So, as I said, some people genuinely don't see this, and so where do you go with that? Well, what happens next? I think the first thing is make the invisible visible, even if that means sitting and writing everything down so it's visible, rather than, can you just tell me what to do? Well, actually, you sit down as together, have a very honest conversation. We need to talk about something that's important to me. I feel overwhelmed by everything that's on my plate. Can we go through what it takes to keep this house and this family running, and see how we can support each other better? Make it visible. Verbalize it, or even put it in writing if that's more constructive, because saying it once and then expecting the other person to change all their unconscious habits is not going to work. You're just going to become frustrated. So it does need conscious action. The write me a list thing, I don't think it should be a one and done. I think it should be more like a one and done, i.e. you write everything down and it stays in somewhere. It's not, right, today here's your list. Today, I'd like you to do this. It's these are all the things that have to happen. These are the bits I'm good at, so I want to keep ownership of those. These are the bits that I think you're really good at. Like, can you take ownership of those? And being specific. So just saying, I need you to help me more. We'll just look around. That might be that's not going to get you what you want specifically, because then what happens is they do something and you're like, oh, well, I wanted to do that, or you haven't done it the way I wanted to do. Would have done it, which just builds more frustration and more resentment. So be really specific. I need you to come to 2 family events a month and be present at those events, or I need you to take responsibility for your family's birthdays. And you have to be comfortable that if he doesn't, that's on him. So being comfortable with the outcome not necessarily being what you would want it to be. So that's why you need to be really specific about what you're prepared to keep carrying and what you're prepared to let go of. But be specific. Otherwise, you are still going to have that vague, oh, I'm not very happy. Well, what can you do about it? Well, I want you to help. Well, how can I help? We'll just look around and see what needs doing. We're just going to stay in that same cycle of unhappiness. And when some people will come back and go, yeah, but why should I? And my view is because you want that place of power. You are responsible for your own life and you are not happy with how it is. So you get to do something about it. And as I've said, boundaries must have consequences. So when you put in a boundary, when you put in an agreement, you have to stick to it. You have to be prepared to hold the line that keeps your mental health and your emotional safety protected. So having a boundary, having a consequence and sticking to it is really important. And so the other thing is stop covering for him. So in this letter, she talks about how she started to make excuses for him because she's embarrassed. But stop covering for him. You are not responsible for his choices, but every time you cover for him, you are taking on a little piece of shame. And what that little bit of shame is saying is that you're not good enough. He doesn't want to be there with you. Actually, this is about him and his choices. And just saying he didn't want to come is a whole sentence. You don't need to give any more than that. People can think what they're going to think, and they might. But it's not your responsibility to protect his reputation. He gets to make those choices and he needs to be comfortable with them. And he might well be. He might well be comfortable with them, but it's not for you to take that stance of 1, protecting his reputation, but 2, ultimately taking on the shame of his choices, because that does eat away at you and it keeps you small and it keeps you visible and it keeps you feeling like you're not enough. So have that honest conversation around the fact that you're not going to cover for him. He might not even be expecting you to, but it's making that invisible visible. Think about what you actually need, not just what you will settle for. If he could just that will go so far, but then the resentments will continue and build. You need to be really specific. This is your life, your one true, beautiful life. Own it. Be clear, be honest. What do you need? And what's going to happen if you don't get it? So that's not about making threats. It's about drawing that line in the sand that says, I'm not prepared to go beyond here. Because that's when I'm sacrificing too much of myself. So having those honest conversations about what you need, how you feel, use that positive language, and start to really establish what partnership looks like in your relationship. On the emotion, resentment doesn't make you a bad wife or a bad mum, feeling resentful, looking at someone and getting annoyed. That is information, really important information. It's telling you this isn't okay. Feeling resentful is telling you something needs to change. And it's not going to happen by accident. It's going to take conscious decisions, choices, and honest communication. Because resentment left unaddressed can and does end relationships, because it builds and it grows. It creates disconnection. It means affection and intimacy drop away. So that resentment feeling is information, and treat it as such. What is it telling you? And then take that responsibility for your life, and what are you going to do about it? And it starts with that first honest conversation. So, to the woman that sent me this letter, I see you. You deserve more, and it's up to you to create it. And you can. If you have a letter like this sitting on your chest, in your head at 2 a.m, the link's in the comments to send me your questions, send me your letters. I read every single one. They remain safe and anonymous. Thanks ever so much.